Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, your guide to motorsports sponsorship. Here's your host, Josh Weesey.
Welcome to the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. AMSOIL and I are working together to ensure that you, regardless of if you are a snowmobiler, a drifter, supercross racer, UTV racer, whatever it is, our vision and what we're striving for is that you can learn how to better market yourself and drive more value for your sponsors. And ultimately, we're trying to make motorsports a bigger, better, more productive industry. We are your guides to motorsports sponsorship. Now, I actually have a story I want to tell you about AMSOIL, and it's basically the origination story. Back in the 1960s, there was a jet fighter pilot. His name was AMSOIL. Now, he asked a simple question: why don't we use synthetic oil in our car engines? So he was a little confused as to why the jet engines, which really needed the synthetic extra protection, like why didn't we use that same technology to combat the extreme heat and stress of the cars that we were seeing? I mean, the supersonic flight needed it, but why didn't we take that same care of our car? So he actually decided to start a company in Superior, Wisconsin, because he couldn't find this oil. So he started a company and called it AMSOIL. And after years of research, he introduced the world's first synthetic motor oil for automobiles in 1972. So that's pretty cool. Now today, synthetics are everywhere, but AMSOIL still leads the industry. And why is that? Because they have never stopped innovating. They test and retest their products in the world's toughest vehicles and equipment. They get it out in the race cars. They get the data out there so we can look at it. And it's pretty crazy. Now, AMSOIL products absolutely run the gauntlet before they ever reach your garage or mine. And it all started with a fighter pilot from Wisconsin. So I encourage you to make the switch to AMSOIL today to help your vehicles last longer and run better. Go to AMSOIL.com/rider to find out more. That's AMSOIL.com/rider. Now, our featured guest for this episode is none other than UTV Desert Racing Iron Woman Kristen Matlock. And I really would love to get your feedback and continue to bring amazing guests to the show. So head over to iTunes, leave a rating and review. And regardless of whatever podcast player you use, go ahead and subscribe. That way you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. Now, we actually have our next guest is the Mad Dog himself, Lauren Morrell of Mad Dog Media Marketing. And in case you missed our last episode, we had motorcycle racing phenom, now 11-year-old, Kayla Yakov, and her father, Dave. This episode here was brought to you by SolderWeld. They produce game-changing metal bonding technology. TopThePodium.com, they're experts in motorsports sponsorship. Bold Racing and Suspension, they're a family race team and custom suspension experts. Armor Code, they simplify your cleaning process. And then Crash Addict Industries, they create human protection and extreme racing products. I also want to give a quick shout out to some of our other partners, including MBRP, HMK, Studboy Traction, GSP XTV Axles, and One Stop Performance. Now, the structure of this podcast, it's set up like a race. We'll begin with the qualifier, which is the basic intro. In Heat 1, we'll dive into Kristen's background. In Heat 2, we'll talk about sponsorship tactics and strategies. In the main event, we'll discuss mindset, and then we'll end at the finish line. And that's where we're going to get closing comments, and you're also going to figure out how to get a hold of Kristen. Without further ado, let's hop in. So, Kristen, I know you got a lot more to tell us. Go ahead and fill in some of the gaps for that intro and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Kristen Matlock, and I race for Factory Polaris on their UTV program. I'm number 1954, and I race the Score series, the entire series down in Baja, and a few of my favorite Best in the Desert races up in Nevada area. I've been racing since 2016 with Polaris, and so this is just my third year doing it. Prior to that, I raced ATVs for 10 years, not on the professional level, but just locally, actually, at some of our district races. I have 5 championships out there in the women's quad class and a few Best in the Desert races, but I had never raced a Baja race before I started racing for Polaris in their UTV. So But my background with racing prior to actually me racing was from my husband, Wayne Matlock. He's been racing for many, many years. He's the ATV champion down in Baja, I believe for 5 or 6 years, and raced for Honda for 8 years, Suzuki a few years, and then when he switched over to Polaris, which was in 2015, he spent a year with them by himself before I decided that I wanted in on this as well. So, yeah, in 2005, I decided that I was done watching Wayne have all the fun. I was sitting in the pit watching him from the sidelines, and I just decided, you know what, I think I can get out there and do this too. So I jumped on my quad and did some local desert races and did fairly well my first couple times. And then I just started following one particular guy is what I would do. I'd pick one guy out on the track and make him my goal. And I'd just hunt that person down during the race, try to pass them. And once I passed that person, the next race I'd pick somebody else that was just a little bit faster. That was my strategy. And eventually I made it all the way up to the top, and even overall the quads against all the guys at one point. So I had a great time doing that, and that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Oh, that's awesome. And there's more there that I didn't know, so it's always good. Even if I've been following guests for a little while, I always learn something even in just that little intro. So it's fun to dive deeper. And actually, I want to keep diving deeper in Heat 1. I want to go back even further, to when you first got started in motorsports in general. So we know you got started racing in 2005 in the ATV world, but let's go back in time further. When did you first get on a machine?
Honestly, I didn't grow up in it at all. My husband did, but I didn't meet him until 2001. And yeah, we actually met at the desert, but that was probably one of my first trips to the desert. I just went with some mutual friends, and we met out there, and it was love at first sight. Mm-hmm. We started dating, and I went to one of his very first races out at the desert. It was a 24-hour race that they had going on out at the desert, and he raced a quad out there. And I fell in love with it instantly too. I love the desert. I love the adrenaline rush that you get as soon as you hop on one of the machines, and I couldn't be, kept away from it at all. It was unstoppable at that point.
So you didn't ride even before 2001? Like your first time really going to a race was a desert race?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Wow.
I hopped on, I think, a 3-wheeler one time and a quad another time, and they were just like my friend's sister's, vehicles at the time. I never owned my own. And Wayne actually bought me my own quad in 2004. It was Christmas of 2004. That was my very first quad I ever owned.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. We've had a couple folks on here, in the past. I think Cynthia Gautier, she was on episode 8, so we're going way back in time. But I think she said she didn't start riding or racing until she was 18. And there was some folks on here. They're like, yeah, when I was 18 months old, the day
Right.
I popped out, I was ripping on a dirt bike, racing professionally.
That's my husband. He was too. I was actually 20, so I'm definitely older in life for sure. But yeah, now I feel like I have a lot of time to make up, so that's why I'm pushing so hard these days.
Well, and you've done some pretty cool stuff recently too. A few big wins, so there's some natural talent there, obviously. So let's talk a little bit about that. So some of the current things that are happening in your life, and what's some of the cool, exciting stuff that's happened recently. Yeah,
well, for one thing I didn't mention too is once I started racing UTVs, I decided that I was going to quote unquote Iron Woman every race out there that I enter. So I've yet to give up the steering wheel to anybody out there. Even the Baja 1000, I think I was the first woman to solo the Baja 1000 in a four-wheel vehicle to this day, especially in a UTV. And then last year, I decided that I was going to take on the 50th anniversary, which they made it 1,134 miles long all the way down the Baja Peninsula. And I soloed that one and finished. I didn't do quite as well as I wanted to. I had a little bit of mechanical issues in the beginning of the race that set me back 8 hours. And so it ended up taking me 39 hours, but I ran that race nonstop. Other than that, 8 hours of sitting there wondering if we were going to get it repaired or not. So I didn't get any rest because I was stressed the entire time, worried that my car wasn't going to get fixed, but they were able to make the repairs and I went on my merry way.
Wow.
So yeah, so that was the biggest one so far that I've done. I've actually podiumed 11 races out of the 14 races that I've entered. So the very first race I did in the UTV was the UTV World Championship in Laughlin, and that was in 2016. And I ended up getting second in my class, which was the Pro UTV naturally aspirated class, and third overall out of everybody there. So that was pretty cool, and that gave me all the confidence in the world that I needed to continue on and do the best that I could racing UTVs. So I was pretty excited about that.
Definitely.
But yeah, my most recent win, the first time I've ever done this too, was I just took the overall UTV win at the Baja 500. That was my first time I'd ever overalled a race, and that was really exciting. That was just a couple weeks ago, and I still feel like I'm just floating on a cloud right now.
Yeah, that was the one that I was going to bring up if you didn't get to it.
Right.
That's a big deal. And for people listening, it's we're recording on June 19th of 2018. So yeah, it was just a few weeks back here where you were able to get that win, and that's massive. That's massive.
Yeah. The first race of the season down there was San Felipe 250 just a couple months ago now. And I ended up taking second overall at that one to my husband. He took first overall and I got second overall. And I only came in, it was less than 3 minutes behind him on adjusted time. So, at that point, I'm like, you know what? I think I can possibly go for this overall win at the Baja 500 this year, even though there's a lot more cars that enter. There's actually 55 UTVs that raced the Baja 500 this year.
Wow.
And so, but I still, I think I could do this. So I set my mind to it going into the race and definitely pushed harder than I normally would. But in the end, it definitely paid off. And I ended up taking first in class and first overall. And unfortunately, Brandon Sims took second overall. I mean, great for him. But I was really hoping, of course, that Wayne would get second overall to me this time and flip-flop like San Felipe, but he ended up third, so he came close. But
So
it was awesome.
Was Wayne the one you've been hunting down in the last couple of races? I mean, you said that's what you do. You find that guy out there, hunt him down, and then pass him.
Yeah, he's been my target, actually. Don't tell him. No. but yeah, I've been able to pass pretty much all the others so far. He was actually still at the Baja 500, even though I took the overall. He's the only one in the whole race that I wasn't able to actually physically pass. I got him on adjusted time. So he finished first, at the finish line, but I came in the right length of time, behind him to take the overall. So. Yeah, so he's still got a target on his back because I have yet to pass him yet.
Oh, that's good though. That's good. That's a good, healthy racing relationship there.
We love it. Yeah, we love each other, and we want each other to do the best, that we could both do. But we're definitely competitive too. So once we get out there, game on, buddy.
My wife and I are pretty competitive, but it's only around mini golf. That's
that's awesome.
We kind of go at it, and I win, but she puts forth a pretty good effort.
Does she? Yeah. See, I'm not very good at mini golf. I'll stick
I'm
to
not
off-road
either.
racing.
I'm not either. I'm just happen to be slightly better than her. That's all.
That's right.
Well, you already gave us a glimpse of your sponsors. Obviously, Polaris Razor is one of them. But who are some of your other, current partners and current sponsors?
We actually have 22 sponsors, believe it or not. Yeah,
awesome.
We have a lot. Yeah, it takes every single one of them to put our program together and make sure that we can get down there and be successful at racing and winning. So, you want me to list them all off?
Yeah,
or
let's.
I'm going for. Okay.
I'm testing you right now to see if you can get them all.
Okay.
I've actually studied each one of your sponsors in and out, so I want the year that they were created. And then, no, I'm just kidding.
I don't know about all that. So we have Polaris, of course, and then Maxxis Tires, Fox Shocks, Feel It, Cognito Suspension, Douglas Wheels, Baja Designs Lighting, Simpson, Cryo Heat, Rugged Radios, Factory UTV, Monster Seal, Air Dam Clutches, IMS Products, Maxima Oils, Summers Brothers Axles, Next Gen for neck protection, S&B Filters, it's a particle separator that we run on the cars. The Satellite Phone Store takes care of our satellite phone needs. Sandcraft, and then we have Copy Boy Printing for our graphics.
Mm-hmm.
Was that 22?
I was not counting at all, but yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, yeah, we have quite a few.
That's a ton. I think not everybody counts them, but I remember one of the episodes. Do you know who Walker Fowler is? He races GNCC.
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so I think he had 36.
Wow.
And I was like, holy cow, man, that's a lot.
Yeah, I think we used to actually have 30 when we raced ATVs.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but the ATVs take a lot of little guys too, little parts here and there, and they're all just kind of one item, per sponsor. So
yeah, one thing that I just want people to recognize, like if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh wow, I've got 3 or 5 sponsors right now, or maybe it's just one. Behind every one of those is 1 to maybe 3 people that you have to interface with periodically. And let's say if it's 22, let's just say it's 2 people per. That it could be 44 people that at some point you have to interface with in these companies. And let's scale it back. Even if that 22 different people, that's a classroom. That's a
right.
a classroom of 3rd graders. 22 people. Just think about that. If everybody's in a room, that's how many people you'd have to, to keep happy.
Exactly.
It's a lot. It's a little bit overwhelming. Yeah, a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah, sometimes it's a challenge for sure, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's the main thing is you have to keep your sponsors happy, and that's what we spend a ton of time with our racing. A lot of people think that we just show up to the races, race our cars, and go home, and that's it. But it's not even close to that. We spend, pretty much all year long making sure that every one of our sponsors gets the love that they deserve. And, if they ask something special of us, then we will make sure that happens, because without them, we wouldn't be out there doing what we do.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think you do? Maybe 10 races a year or more than that?
We do 7 races a year. 7 big ones.
Okay, so
yeah.
I just want people to, especially if they don't know the desert racing world, because there's like snowmobilers listening to this show and GNCC folks, and that's all year long to support 7 races. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, exactly. We do 4 down in Mexico, and we spend the whole week prior down there practicing for those races too, because they let you go down there and practice the course. We call it pre-running. So there's 4 weeks out of the year right there, just learning the course. And then the best and the other races, they don't let you pre-run it, but we're still working, weeks prior to each race, and we start as soon as we come back from a race, the cars get torn down each time and gone through by our mechanic, Daniel Felix. He's our mechanic that takes care of our stuff, and he has a full-time position with Matlock Racing too. So he spends every day either working on Wayne's race car, my race car, our pre-runners that we have. You know, even our little guys, our 6-year-old and 8-year-old, they have Razor 170s too, and they're going to get into racing pretty soon. They've done a couple. They've done the UTV World Championship, but he takes care of their vehicles too. So we got a lot going on with all of these Polaris Razors here.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to have a lot going on in the rest of this episode too, because we're going to dive into the meat of the show in Heat 2. But right before we do that, I want to take a quick minute to thank the sponsors for this podcast. Safety is our overriding priority. I hear it all the time, but I have to ask myself, is it though? Is that the first thing we think of? Is that the first thing you think of? Over the past couple of years, we've seen the performance of production UTVs increase, somewhere around 350%. That means these machines give us a lot more opportunity to have fun and win races, but it also, unfortunately, gives us new opportunities to crash. And that's why we have partnered with Crash Addict Industries. The owner, Travis Pointer, became very accustomed to crashing early in his career. He saw it as inevitable, and he set out to make the process safer. With a passion for racing, welding, and engineering, Crash Addict Industries now produces full cage and other protection systems intentionally designed to protect you during an accident on the track. They also offer a line of human protection products through their vendors. Do this for me at this point. If you're racing with a stock cage right now, please go check out crashaddict.com and at least just see what they have to offer. Even if you choose to go with a different company, please make safety your overriding priority. I am constantly asking the guests of this podcast how they attract and retain sponsors, and on almost every single occasion, somebody gives an example of a resume. A rider or a racer resume is extremely important to your overall sponsorship pitch and proposal. And it's tough to do. I mean, it's not really the easiest thing. Anybody can go through and put together a resume, so don't get me wrong there, but it's really difficult to get something that's like unique and different and stands out, and that also is something that can be put across multiple platforms. Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about next, is how topthepodium.com can actually help you build a race or rider resume that can be used on multiple platforms. I'm talking like website, PDF, something you can print off that's interactive, that looks fantastic. It looks absolutely professional. Well, that's because it's made by a professional. This is the type of thing that's going to set you apart from the crowd, and that's going to position you for a strong sponsorship proposal. So what I want you to do next is go to topthepodium.com, and if you have a question, there's a little chat icon that pops up on the side of the screen when you go to topthepodium.com, and you can go ahead and type your question right there. Jeff Vanestal, he is the owner of Top the Podium. He's going to be able to respond to you directly, so check it out. I hear it constantly from racers that a good suspension setup is absolutely critical for performance, and that's why I'm going to talk to you next about bold racing and suspension. Now, it's really critical to understand your suspension, and there's so many intricacies with the valving and the shims and all this crazy equipment that you need to actually rebuild and properly set up your suspension, that it's really important, if you're ready for that next level of performance, to partner with an awesome suspension company. Now, Bold Racing is that company. They're not only specialists with their suspension setups, but they also partner with companies that produce amazing custom components. And on top of that, they're a family race team. They actually race themselves, so they really understand the type of beating that your vehicle and your shocks can take. So what I want you to do is give them a call and just chat with them. Talk to them about suspension. Their number is 702-506-5354. If you're not ready for a phone call, go ahead and shoot them an email, bold.racing@yahoo.com. I don't know about you, but I absolutely can't stand cleaning the mud, filth, grime, goo, garbage off my machines after I go for a ride. It's just frustrating. It takes a lot of time. That's why I'm going to talk to you about Armor Coat next. Armor Coat is designed to help prevent mud, clay, ice, and other grime from sticking to your machine. It makes the cleanup quick and easy. It makes the machine actually look fantastic, and beyond that, it smells phenomenal. I don't know how to describe it, like bubble gum or something like that. It smells great. If you want to know more about Armor Coat, visit armorcoatproducts.com, and you will see their entire product line, all the offerings. Armor Coat is also working on some new stuff. They're soon going to release a solution made for coating the helmet and visor, and also one for wheels to help prevent mud buildup for high temp areas. So make your move now. Go to armorcoatproducts.com. Make a decision that's going to allow you to shorten the amount of time that you spend cleaning so that you can increase the amount of time that you spend riding and racing. Have you ever been out on the trail or at the track or in the middle of the desert and something breaks? Well, of course you have. We've all been there. But a lot of people at that point, they reach into their trusty toolbox for the duct tape or the zip ties or wrenches to fix their machine. However, there's a feeling that you get when you realize you need more than just duct tape to fix that rock chip in your radiator. That's a horrible, horrible feeling to have. And that's why I'm going to tell you next about SolderWeld's metal bonding products, specifically AMSOIL. So this product gives you a longer term fix than JB Weld, which is just going to get you back to the trailer or back to the pits. With basically the assistance of MAP gas or propane torch, you can quickly and easily repair an oil cooler, radiator, AC line, or any crack or hole in aluminum. And better yet, AMSOIL flux is the only flux in industry that cleans and decontaminates the dirty and greasy surface for you. So you don't even have to worry about that part. The AMSOIL rods are actually capable of a 30,000 PSI fix, and they're stronger than even the parent metal, and they're built to last the lifetime of the part. So don't let a simple radiator leak leave you out of the race or broken down in the trail. Bring along some AMSOIL aluminum alloy repair rod and flux from SolderWeld. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're on Heat 2 now. That's where we discuss how to attract and retain sponsors. And I'm going to point something out because you just said this word earlier. You hunt somebody down. You hunt them down on the racetrack, and you pass them. We just did a live episode of this show with Joey Sylvester. He's a sprint car racer, and one of the things we talked about on that show was attract, don't hunt. So
Right.
So you
right.
have, like from the sponsor standpoint, it's a little bit different mindset. So on the track, you
That's
hunt.
True.
Off the track,
Yes.
you attract.
That's true. That's a good one.
That's the message. That was a good setup. We did not plan that, everybody. We did not.
Not at all.
Well, Kristen, what I want you to do, and to kind of kick off this heat, is maybe walk us through a couple of examples of how you built a relationship with a sponsor. And I asked this question, to all the guests because I want people to provide examples of how they've made contact, of how, like, what are the things they did to cause that attraction for a sponsor, and then how they build on a relationship from there. So, do you have one or two that you could share with us?
Yeah, definitely. This is more my husband's department, because Wayne and I work as a team on everything with Matlock Racing. So his part of it is usually getting the sponsors, and a lot of the sponsors that we have currently are from his ATV racing days. They've, transpired over to the UTV side of it. So we kept a lot of the same sponsors like Maxxis Tires and Fox Shocks. They do both ATV and UTV, even the wheel company that we have, Douglas Wheels and Baja Designs. The list goes on. And it was kind of nice because he earned all of those sponsors, I say, in the past, and they were willing to kind of take the risk whenever we both switched over to UTVs. And I call it a risk because neither one of us really had proven ourselves in the UTV field of it at all. But they must have seen something with us with ATV racing because they believed in us. But I'll start with Polaris, actually. Polaris is somebody that Wayne had his foot in the door with originally in 2015, and he ran the whole year. They actually asked him, if we give you just a little, support for this year, can you go out and prove yourself to us, basically, and see what you can do, see if you can go out and win. And luckily he was able to do that. So then him and I both flew to Minnesota, where they're located, and sat down with the big guy there and went face to face with him. And I think that's huge. I think a lot of times trying to do it through email or over the phone just is not the same, as going face to face with somebody. So, so yeah, that's why we hopped on that plane and flew back there to Minnesota. So we went face to face, and we gave him our pitch of, we're a little bit unique because we're husband and wife team, and there's not very many of them out there. So I think that helped a lot with us. They saw us as very marketable, being husband and wife and running 2 cars, and they kind of jumped all over it, which was really exciting. So, and I myself, like I said earlier, I had never even really been behind the wheel of a UTV prior to this. So they looked at my ATV stats and decided, she knows what she's doing, obviously, off-roading. And they did take a risk on me, though, by knowing that I really didn't know what I was doing with the UTV yet. So, so as far as, the sitting down in front of somebody and all that, I think that's extremely important, that you just need to go eye to eye with the person. And it's a lot harder to say no, eye to eye than it is through email. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So that's my one point there. And then with, let's see, pick another one.
Well, actually, I want to dive into this one a little bit more.
Oh, you want to go deeper in Polaris? Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple things that you said I thought was very important that I wanted to make sure people understand. And one of them you said with Wayne that he had earned previous sponsors, right? And in this case, like, he had gotten his foot in the door. Well, what I want to just point out is that this does happen, right? You have friends, you have family, you have other loved ones that they have a connection or a foot in the door to a company, and then you have some way of getting involved in that. But getting involved is a lot different from, like, actually being able to make the business case, sell the proposal, and execute on it and retain that. Especially, it's been a couple of years now that you've been able to do that. So you have now earned that too. I know that
Correct.
happens. Sometimes people will say, there's, haters gonna hate, right? But sometimes there's people that'll say, oh, well, such and such knows whoever, and that's how they got into a business. Well, you know what? That's exactly right. And you know how hard it is sometimes to network and be able to sustain that and then sell yourself? Like, it is hard. And then you have to prove yourself on top of that. Like,
right.
It's incredible. So I just wanted to point that out, that there's a lot of things that you have to do. It's very challenging to sustain, to build and sustain a relationship that, really was never yours to begin with, and then you were able to dive in and make it yours.
Right.
And then the next piece, you said the word marketable. The husband and wife combo, it's a marketable attribute, and it is, and that's what people need to recognize. It's not that it's husband and wife; it's that's a unique scenario, right? There's people, like, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, well, I don't have a husband or I don't have a wife. That's not the point. The point is what is unique about your situation that you can market. Like, for example, I've talked about them on here a couple of times, but, Sierra and Randy Romo, father-son race team, that's a unique situation, and they were able to market that. And like Bold Racing, they're sponsors for this show. They're a father-son race team. Actually, the whole family is involved. Jimmy Moore, his wife is basically the team manager, and she's like coordinating all the pit activities, and then like their youngest son is like the pit crew manager, and it's but they market that. So you have to find whatever
Yeah.
your unique situation is, capture that, and then that's what you sell.
Yeah, try to be a little bit different if you can. Don't just try to copy somebody else out there. That's the main thing. Yeah.
Right. That's good. Okay, sorry. I had to
No,
kind of
it's
just
fine.
get that out there real quick. Okay, so
Yeah, that
you
was
said
great.
you said you had another one, another example. So I'll let you go through that example now.
Yeah, I would say it's actually a smaller company, but we need him, for our racing for sure. It's Cryo Heat. He does an amazing job at keeping our parts strong.
Mm-hmm.
Is what they do. I don't know if you've heard of Cryo Heat, but it's
I've
actually
heard of it, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it does.
Yeah. He takes all of the parts, like especially from our transmissions, and actually it's called cryo heat, but I still don't quite understand it. I'm sure he'll probably call me and give me a lesson after he hears this, but
right.
But it's more of a freezing process. So
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it freezes it, and then it somehow hardens it and strengthens it at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Not hardens it to the point where it's going to be brittle and crack, but just to the right point. So our transmissions, like, we haven't had any issues. Certain parts that we have had issues in the past with braking too, we cryo heat them now. So if it's a bolt or an axle or, like I said, transmission part, all of these parts we send to Josh at Cryo Heat, and he does his magic and sends them back to us and gives us the confidence out there that these parts are not going to fail anymore when they have in the past. So with him, he's a local guy here where we're from in San Diego, and we had already been doing well in the races, but had a rough couple of races where we had some parts fail. So we approached him knowing what he does, and told him exactly who we are and what we've been doing and what our issues have been at the races. And he was excited to hear from us and jumped all over it as well. And so now he's been a great sponsor of ours as well.
That's cool, and I guarantee. Well, guarantee is a strong word, but if there's a metallurgist out there right now, they are cringing. They're just like, oh, let me please step in and explain to you how the metals process works.
I know.
I don't know enough about it to say what
I call it magic.
Yeah, I think that's good. Let's call it magic.
Whatever it is, it works.
Right.
So.
And let's let the experts handle that. But that's another reason, like, you need a sponsor that you can trust, because you're not going to be able to know all the ins and outs of everything. Like, you have to rely on experts for some of the stuff.
Right. And that's where, with my husband too, being a part of this, that's kind of his side of it as well. He knows all the mechanics of everything, and I'm doing my best to learn. I've learned a lot over the years for sure, but I mean, even he doesn't know everything. Nobody really knows everything. So we learn every race. It seems like we learn something else. So
right. I mean, I know everything, but I understand the point you're making about, so I know there's most people don't, most humans don't.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Not everyone's like you.
No, it's it's a very good point. And I think if you're racing right now and you're thinking, well, like, I would never need a mechanic to help me, or I would never need, someone to, I don't know, work on my suspension for me. I can figure all that out. You might get to a point in your career where you're like, goodness, I think what's holding me back from getting to the next level is my own talent. Like, I might need someone else to step in. Like, I know suspension is a big piece. There's just a certain there's suspension gurus out there that they can figure stuff out that you just can't.
Right.
And sometimes you have to say, okay, who can I find? Who can I partner with that can help take my program to the next level? And then how am I gonna help their business so that they can continue to help my race program?
Exactly. And that's what we've done with Fox and Cognito, both.
Right.
shocks, and then our suspension, is from Cognito, and we've worked together with both of them, even on, I think, a conference call before, just trying to figure out exactly what we can do to make this better. So, Yep. Yeah, they're all out there to help us win. That's for sure. So,
That's
and
good.
then I was going to bring up something too. I was thinking of, quite a few of our sponsors have helped us attain other sponsors. Well, we've asked quite a few of them, hey, who do you know, that does this or that? And sure enough, they give us the right contact information, and we call them. And since we've been referred by whomever, it was that gave us the number, we ended up with a sponsor that way more than once too. So that's another tip I have.
That's a great point. If you pay attention to some of the race programs out there, and you start seeing themes from time to time around which sponsors like end up being together quite often, if that makes sense. Because they pay attention to that, because a lot of times your sponsors are going to be together in the sense that they're going to be on the same post. So like if you put a social media post up, you're going to have, two of your sponsors. So Cryoheat and Polaris are both going to be sitting there.
Correct.
On the side of your car, you're going to have Polaris and Cryoheat. And maybe on, suits or something, you're going to have Polaris and Cryoheat. And you'll start seeing some trends. It's because they do, companies do talk to one another. People run companies. It's not some like generic structure out there that like makes decisions for businesses. There are humans that are running these companies, and humans talk, and they have friendships, and they know each other, and they share information, and those things just kind of tend to spread.
Yeah, they end up at, the off-road shows together, which is another place that I would definitely recommend going to attain sponsorship, is going to all the off-road shows that you can go to, at least for off-roading, but whatever show it may be, that's where all the sponsors are, all under one roof, most of the time. So we make sure that we hit a couple of those a year at least. And, but that's where sponsors will talk to other sponsors and talk about different racers. And that's how it all kind of starts, through word of mouth.
Yep. And, we talked a little bit earlier about how when you associate yourself with somebody else, that can open up new doors. So obviously with you and your husband, there's some very close association where you and him can easily link up on, the same sponsor. You could sell yourselves as a package. But it does happen with friends and, fellow racers. And example that I'll share briefly, if you look at some of the people who I've had on the show I've had on multiple times on the show, well, some people I have a relationship with. We talk once and then we keep in contact, and you'll notice some trends periodically. So I'll bring up George Hamill. So George Hamill has been on the show twice now, and he races short course UTV, and he's sponsored by SolderWeld, which sponsors this podcast, and also Armor Cote, which sponsors this podcast. And all that stuff kind of happened like when him and I started forming those relationships. It was around the same time. So it's just interesting how some of those things are linked up. And I look at Desert Vets Racing. So they've not actually, no, Mike Pasquarello was on the show. He was on episode 37 for a couple of minutes. It was a live interview at Vegas to Reno last year. He's also sponsored by SolderWeld and NBRP, which is something that this show shares. They are those same two sponsors, but like Mike and I of Desert Vets Racing formed a relationship, and then now we see there's some of the same sponsors they work with both of us. So there's these connections that happen that I can't even trace all of the lines back. I try to pride myself in being able to break down how relationships are formed and really understand like the key to how it happened, and it's just so complex sometimes I can't even figure it out.
Right. Yeah, it's a big spider web in the end, that's for sure.
It is. So, and we've said it a million times on here before, but I love what you just said about spider web. If you take and cut one of the main strands in a spider web, the whole thing starts collapsing. And what I mean by that is, right, it unravels. So when it comes time to sever a relationship with with a sponsor, you be careful not to burn that bridge. Like you can not use it anymore. That's okay, but once you burn it and sever it completely, there's it can have it can have a negative effect
for sure
that you don't really anticipate. But well, speaking of that, now I don't know how many examples you have of this, but I am curious to know if you've had a situation where things didn't go well with a sponsor. Maybe it wasn't what you expected, or things just, you got excited and it didn't work out, or maybe there was a bad relationship that formed. Do you have any examples like that?
Yeah, we've actually been blessed with great sponsors, and like I said, we've had most of them for many, many years. But we've actually found ourselves kind of in trouble, I guess, by one of the sponsors one time by not including them in the hashtags. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
We accidentally left one of them off one time, and we heard about it for sure, and we felt horrible, and we immediately fixed the problem on social media. But people, I don't think, realize how important it is to make sure you include everybody. Don't forget, no matter how big or how small they are, everybody wants some sort of recognition for what their efforts they're putting into the program. So that's the only thing, really. I mean, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head other than just make sure that everybody gets the proper recognition and don't leave them off of the hashtags.
Yeah, it's a good point. That stuff matters. The devil's in the details. I guess one thing that's a point out is that sponsors pay attention. They might not always tell you, right? They might not say, "Hey, Kristen, I reviewed your post last month. Thank you. 30 out of 30 all had the appropriate hashtag. High five."
Right.
They're probably not going to say that, but hey, Kristen, I just wanted to talk to you. You missed one. It was a critical one, right? You had just won Baja. I don't know. I'm just making it up, but you just won Baja. You forgot this, and there was 16,000 views before you updated it. And hey, next time please remember us, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it was a smaller company, but the smaller companies are the ones that really need the love too, because they're trying to become possibly bigger company, so they're really looking for all the likes and views out there for sure.
Yeah, and one way I like to think about the sponsor relationship for smaller companies is if they're giving you support, it's probably a bigger percentage of their overall business. So, if things don't go well there, it has a big impact on their business. Maybe, let's say if you have a larger sponsor that's contributing $100,000 per program and a smaller one that's contributing $100,000, well, what if the $100 company only makes $1,000 a year in revenue? That's 10% of their business. Right. And in the $100,000 company, maybe they have 10% of their business, whatever that is. For some reason, I can't. 10,000. Why can't I think of it as $100,000? Oh. Yeah. I don't know. I can't remember the numbers I was saying. I need to edit that out because I sound like a buffoon.
No problem.
But no, like the percentage of the big companies, it might be equivalent to the small ones. So they're putting up just as much risk, small versus big companies. So you need to take that into consideration when you're trying to support the small and the big companies at the same time.
Exactly.
I really want to dive into social media for a minute because it's become such a big part of our world, especially in motorsport sponsorship. So I just want to kind of understand your strategy. What are some of the platforms that you're on, and how do you decide what information you want to share?
Social media is huge. As much as we all tried to kind of avoid it from the get-go, I think, the sponsors definitely got us involved with it and showed us how great it can be, because it really gets acknowledgement out there from everybody. I'm going to say with off-road racing especially, it is so hard from a spectator's standpoint to see what's going on out on the race course. they sit at mile 500 at the race, and that's all they see. They see just a flash of the vehicle go by them once, in a 500-mile race. And so what social media has done is it's enabled us to post all the pictures and videos and show them what happens before and after, the races as well, and stuff that they would absolutely never see in their lifetime unless they could see it on social media. So I think it's turned into something absolutely amazing, and I love it now. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook both. And it's a lot of work, definitely, but it's also worth the effort in the end, because now I think, like I was saying with off-road racing, people know more about it these days, because it's been a challenge in the past to get people involved with it, because it's definitely a boring race or sport to watch from a spectator's standpoint otherwise. But nowadays you have social media and you have these trackers now, which is awesome too, that both SCORE and Best in the Desert have put out there, so you can track it online and watch your favorite racers, hopefully get to the finish before everyone else, in their class.
Right,
watch the whole thing. You feel like you're right there with them.
Yeah, I know when the big races are on. I mean, if you look at my Facebook is just, it's all motorsport stuff. Sorry, family, but you're barely making it into my feed anymore. But yeah, during like the big races, that's how I know how people are doing. I mean, you see people come across the finish line, they're like, hey, unofficial fifth. They're like, oh, cool, and where's the other person? Like, right. It's a cool tracking opportunity, and that's, I think you nailed it in saying that it gives you something that you didn't have before. Before social media, you just didn't know where the desert racers, what they were up to, what the challenges they were facing during the race. Now if you break down on somewhere, and if you're lucky enough to have some service, you can put a little update. Hey, broke down. Like, people are they're going to be super concerned about that. They're going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
One thing that Joey Sylvester, I'll refer back to him again. He was just on the last episode of the live version. He said this about social media. He said there's a lot of people out there, which I completely agree with this. There's a lot of people out there that have kind of said, nah, I don't need to do social media. I'm just going to be a good racer, and I'm going to let my results speak for themselves. And that used to be like the way to go before social media. 10 years ago, that's how you got the screen time. That was probably the only way you got the real recognition. And now the expectation is that not only do you perform as well as you can and win, but you have to be active on social media. So if you are not active on social media right now and you want to up your sponsorship game, like, open up your Instagram account right now. Like, hit pause on this. If you're driving while listening, pull off to the side of the road and get to a safe spot, and then open up your Instagram, open up a Facebook account, and get after it, because you got to have it nowadays. There's a reason why I bring it up on every single episode. It's because it's incredibly important in the world today. Who knows? 10 years from now, it might be completely different, but right now, it's important.
This is it. Yeah, it's in our contracts for most of our sponsors that we have to do X amount of posts during the weeks, leading up to the race. And then during the race, you need to find somebody, in your crew to do posting as well, because it's mandatory. So.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And just what you said about hashtags, there's certain hashtags will end up in contracts, and certain number of posts, and whatever type of content you produce. Like maybe if you produce videos, there's probably a certain number of videos. But I want people to think about social media this way. It's another way for companies to get eyeballs or ears on their content. Think of Facebook advertising, for example, competes with television advertising. A company can do either one. You got a choice. So you can say, and actually what we do, what you do, what I do, what pretty much every person who listens to this podcast does. They do influencer marketing. And it's basically where companies take certain amounts of their marketing budget, they give it to key influencers, and they say, "Hey, market our product for us. We're not gonna tell you exactly what content to create. We're gonna tell you have to create content, and go for it." And that's how, instead of a television ad, you get 50, racers out there posting your products instead. But if you don't follow through on those posts, I mean, just imagine if you had a TV ad that you paid $50,000 for and they never aired it.
Correct. Yeah,
It just
that's
doesn't work.
exactly the same. Yeah.
And the people who are sitting in the positions, the marketers, they have to make this decision. They have to put together a proposal. Do I go give Kristen money to do this, or do I go give, NBC money to do this? Like, they have to make that decision.
Right. Yeah, and I think social media is definitely the way to go these days, because I don't know about you, but I like DVR everything now on TV, and I don't ever watch a single commercial.
Right.
When people are on social media, they're actually on there basically to see all the ads. They're looking for ads, so they want to see what pops up. But when we're watching TV, we're watching it for the TV show half the time and hardly ever watch the commercials.
Right.
So
right.
I think TV is just kind of, it's getting to the point where it's just not really worthy, of like social media is.
And one of the keys to the influencer marketing, the thing that we do, is it doesn't feel like it's a commercial, right? You watch a commercial and you're like, wow, they're selling me something. But if you see somebody get out of their car after they just did 1,100 miles of a race, and they're like, guess what? Tires aren't flat. I don't even have to say it. Look, no flats or whatever it is. Like, wow, okay.
Exactly.
You just did 1,100 miles of like grueling, and yeah, it proves itself. It proves itself.
And it's the live version too. It's not staged. That's what they like.
Right.
Yeah, it's real life.
Yeah, so I think that that's why a lot of companies are shifting towards that, and that's why social media has been so successful. It's you get this product placement in your post that is pretty genuine. I mean, you can tell when it's not genuine, and that's not as successful. But when it is truly genuine, it sells. It really does. Well, good. Next thing I want to do is dive into the main event. That's where we discuss mindset. And I'm actually going to condense it down just a little bit. And I'm only going to ask 2 questions, but one of them is the one we talked about in the pre-interview, and you're like, it's a toughie. We're going to ask it right now because I like this question, and it is a tough one. But the question is, if you could sponsor any athlete in the world, who would you choose and why? Now, before you answer, I just want to explain to people again why I asked this question. It's because this is the feeling that you have when you try to narrow down who you're going to sponsor. That's the same feeling that the marketing managers and the creative directors and all the people who have to make sponsorship decisions, they have to do this. Like, they have to process who would they pick and why. So, with that said, Kristen, who would you pick and why?
My pick would be Sarah Price.
I knew it. I mean,
I love her.
You gave me hints. Yeah, she is awesome. You gave me hints, but like I was like, it's Sarah Price, it's Sarah Price, it's Sarah Price.
Yeah, yes. She's one of my favorites. Well, for one, she's extremely marketable. She's a female off-road, racer, which there's not a lot of us yet. I'm very excited that it seems to be growing every single year. But still, it's she's female. She's bubbly and has a great personality, and everybody loves her. She does her job as far as social media goes. She's got herself out there, and she's doing a great job at just marketing herself. She puts 100% and 110% effort into that, I can tell. And she can get out there, and she can pretty much drive and race anything and everything. So, that's why I would choose Sarah. She's just amazing, and I have total respect for her and think she's great.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sarah has been brought up on the show a couple times as, an inspiration to others, and she's been on the show twice now.
Oh, has
And
she? Okay.
yeah. So she was on episode 12, which is very early on. So she took you mentioned this earlier, taking risks, right? She took a
Mhm.
risk on a pretty new show and said, "Yeah, I'll give you an hour of my time," which is phenomenal. And then she came on a live version of the show, and that went really well too. But just to kind of to build on that a little bit more, if you do like following Sarah Price is fun on social media. She's somehow involved in everything. So there's
Totally.
a lot of like differentiation in what she posts. Sometimes it's a trophy truck, some days it's like some sort of drift car that she did with Hoonigan, some days it's dirt bikes, and then it's her just hanging out. So pretty cool stuff there. But she genuinely takes time to help people. If you see her at an event, she will talk to you, and it's like you guys are best friends, right? It's just it's how she
Exactly.
is.
Yeah, she's very easy to talk to, and you can just tell that she's just so happy to be there, and just so full of life. She's
Mm-hmm.
great.
Well, that's good. Well, the next question in this section I want to ask is around what's next. So I think that from the sponsorship world, it's important to have kind of an idea of where you want to head. Now, sometimes it's hard to really nail that down, and I think all of us struggle with it. But you know, what I've
Yeah.
noticed too, a lot of sponsors want to know like, what's your future goals, where you want to be at. So, what about for you? What's kind of next in your motorsports career, and how do you know that that's the right next thing?
Well, kind of going back to Sarah, I said that she um, can pretty much get behind anything and everything and drive it and race it and be successful at it. So that's actually what I'm going to try and do. It's still going to be a UTV. It's still a Polaris Razor, but it's the RS1. I'm going to get behind
Mm,
the wheel of one of those and start doing some short course races of the Lucas Oil Series.
nice,
Yeah, so I'm going to try something
nice.
totally different. Never done this kind of thing in my life. I'm nervous and excited, all together here. But yeah, I'm going to start that the first weekend of August. It's Lucas Oil Regional Series race in Glen Helen, and it's a night race.
Nice.
It's going to be my very first go at that. Actually, Wayne's going to do it as well. So
Oh,
Polaris,
really?
is going to hook us up with a couple RS1s, and we're going to build them up to Lucas Oil racing, and get them ready to go. So I'm excited
Very
for that.
cool.
That's something new and exciting for sure. And then our next regular race is going to be Vegas to Reno this year, and
Mhm.
I won that race last year, and I'm really
Mhm.
hoping to win it again this year and see if I can do better. I think I got like 6th overall last year, which isn't one of my best overall finishes, but that race is really, really fast, and those turbo cars, because I'm naturally aspirated, like I said before, they really can get me out there on the straightaways. So, but I'm gonna try to put my foot down a little bit further into that floor and see if I can get them better this year. And then the big one coming up will be the Baja 1000 for me again. And
Mhm.
um, since I'm still excited about the first overall at the Baja 500, of course I'm going to try the same at the Baja 1000 this year, driving it solo as well. So wish me luck on that one. I'm excited
Yeah,
for that.
definitely. That's
Yeah.
very cool. Well, uh, I will be at the Vegas Torino in 2018 this year as well. I was there last year. I didn't see you win because I was a couple hours behind in my group when we were racing. I was with Bold Racing, but this year coming back again, and I'm gonna have a little podcast booth set up in the Bold Racing area. So if you got some time during Tech and Contingency, I
For
can
sure. I'll make
I
the
can
time.
pencil you in. I can make. I got a lot going on, right? I got a lot of fans and a lot. No, I'm just kidding. I'd love to have you stop by
Awesome. Yeah, I would love
and
to join you.
do a little interview. Good. So everybody, you heard that, right? So now you're accountable to it because you've announced it publicly.
Yep, and I'll drag my
millions of
husband over
viewers.
too, so we can talk to him a little bit and pick his brain.
I like it. Well, that's good stuff, and I'm excited to see what you're gonna do in those races too. I think it's hard after you've had some really big wins. Like, how do I keep this momentum going? And it's exciting to watch that struggle too. It ain't easy being green.
What's that?
It ain't easy being green. That's a comment. Like, if you're out in front, it's not easy being out in front.
It's not. Yeah, I'm actually definitely more nervous going into these races now, for sure. Because before the Baja 500, since I put so much pressure on myself, I got major butterflies going on before. But once that green flag drops, it's all over. I'm good. I calm down and get in my zone. So.
Perfect.
But yeah, and then maybe someday I'll get to try one of those trophy trucks out to talk to Sarah.
There it is.
See what she can do there. We've talked about it in the past, actually, but it's just so hard because we race all the same races,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Someday.
That'll be cool.
See. That's my bucket list.
That'll be cool. Definitely. Well, right now I kind of want to start wrapping things up at the finish line. Kristen, if there is one thing that you would like our listeners to take away from this show, what would that one thing be?
I would just make sure that everyone knows that anyone and everyone can get out there and do exactly what we're doing. You just got to put your mind to it, and, it doesn't matter if you're a female or, nothing should slow you down or hold you back. That's for sure. So just know that if you want it bad enough, you can go out and get it. You just got to put the effort into it, and it'll come. You'll make it happen as long as you try hard enough.
Definitely. And one of the things that I'm very excited about, it's going to take some time to break all the cultural norms, but you and Sarah and Sierra Romo and Shelby Anderson and Cynthia Gauthier and Amy Hood and all the females out there that are killing it, right? They're like, when you guys were all growing up, it was a different generation, so you didn't have as many people to look up to and say, like, all right, females can race and dominate, but now you've got a whole another generation of women that are watching you, and like, I just want to put this out there, guys, like 10, 20 years from now, it's going to be a whole different ball game. Like, you better step your game up, because women they're coming,
It's growing for sure, and I love it. I love getting all of the fan, I get messages on Facebook and Instagram from all the little girls and, even the girls that are my age, they'll say, you know what, I think I'm going to try it because of you. And that just makes me feel so good, and just love inspiring people to get out there and try it. It doesn't matter, if you're, I'm going to be 38 years old this year. I'm not some young chickadee, but, and like I said, I was 20 when I got started with this. So, and I just think anyone and everyone should just try it. If it's something that you're passionate about and you want bad enough, you should do it. Right.
That's good. It's very good. What's the best way for people listening to connect with you?
I'm on Facebook as Kristen Matlock 1954. So at Kristen Matlock 1954. And then Instagram is real simple. It's just at Kristen Matlock.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking some time to share your insights, your journey. I think we got a lot of good details out of this show. Ton to talk about at Vegas to Reno as well. So when we link up, I'm sure we're going to have some more stories to share at that point too. But at this point, I'm going to leave you with this. Have fun and ride safe.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to this episode of the Sponsored Rider Club podcast, which is powered by AMSOIL. Make sure that you are a subscriber to this show so that you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. If you found us off a website or off a link on Instagram or Facebook, then you're not going to automatically find us next time unless you subscribe. And it'll download directly to your phone regardless of if you're using an iPhone or an Android. Subscribe. So Lauren Morrell of Mad Dog Media Marketing is coming up next, and it's such a fun episode. We completely lost track of the outline, but it was really good, and I really hope that you're able to tune into that one coming up next. Also, while you're on iTunes, go ahead and leave a rating review. That would be great. It provides a ton more exposure for the show. Make sure that you're following us on social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, and pay particular attention to our Facebook page. We go live on Facebook twice a month, and next in our live series, we actually have NHRA speedster Megan Meyer coming on. She was originally featured on episode 52 of this show, and she's going to be coming on live on Facebook page Monday, July 9th at 9 p.m. Eastern. So go ahead and give us a follow on that, and keep on the lookout for the live notifications. To get some insider access to our upcoming guests, go ahead and check out the Sponsored Rider Club on Facebook and request to join. I approve all those requests as long as you have some sort of association with off-road or motorsports that I can find in your profile. So go ahead and give me a request to join that group. Now, special thanks goes out to our sponsors, AMSOIL, Armor Coat, SolderWeld, Bold Racing and Suspension, TopThePodium.com, and Crash Addict Industries. And I also want to shout out our other partners, including GSP XTV Axles, MBRP, HMK USA, Studboy Traction, and One Stop Performance. I look forward to serving you again next week. Until then, have fun and ride safe.